Ladies and gentlemen, we are setting up for today's re-review. I am actually here, but you just can't see me. And let's face it, that's probably okay because nobody wants to see me in Speedos and covered in baby oil. Hello everyone, I'm Brian from UK Gaming Network, the Retro Meister, but you can probably call me Zoidberg. Welcome to the 20th episode of the Re-Review, where I replay and reassess games from my favourite gaming era. I used to be a writer for various games magazines, such as GamesX, PlayStation Zone and Amiga Action, and during this time I got to play many games and offer up my opinions to the readers. If you read one of these magazines back in the day, the chances are that something that I said contributed to your buying decision. In this series, I take one of these games, replay it, and see whether or not I scored it correctly. In this episode, I'm going to be climbing into the ring and taking a brand new look at WWF WrestleMania, developed by Twilight and published by Ocean Software in 1991. While it wasn't the first game to carry the official World Wrestling Federation license, WWF WrestleMania was the first for home computers. It was released just in time for Christmas 1991 by Ocean Software, on Spectrum, Commodore 64, Amstrad, Atari ST and Amiga. Predictably, it was a massive seller across all formats. The Atari ST and Amiga versions were developed by Twilight, most well known for the colourful platformer Alfred Chicken and their excellent conversion of Capcom's Mega Twins. I spoke about them previously on the re-review when I covered Video Kid back in episode 5, and they went on to work with Ocean again on the movie tie-ins Cool World and the 8-bit versions of Darkman. As far as wrestling games on the Amiga goes, there was little to no competition back in 1991. If you were a fan of the sport, then your only options were the truly appalling ICW Wrestling from Houston, or Micro League Wrestling, which envisioned that what gamers would want would be a turn-based strategy game with janky FMV used to show the fights. Your best options at the time were to go back to the 8-bit era and play Championship Wrestling from Epix on the Commodore 64, or pay a visit to your local arcade and play WWF WrestleFest from Technos. I remember there being a cabinet of that one in my local game shop, and I'd always have a few cheeky credits on my journey home from school. It wasn't until the console era that wrestling games really began to take off in popularity, thanks to a number of titles on the Mega Drive and SNES. There was also the excellent Fire Pro Wrestling for the Turbo Graphics, if you were willing to pay that little bit extra in order to import it from Japan. Fortunately, it's a lot easier to play today thanks to re-releases on Virtual Console and an excellent sequel for PlayStation 4 and PC released in 2018. Everyone was getting in on the act by the mid-90s. ECW, WCW and TNA Wrestling all lent their names to games of various quality. Even The Simpsons got in on the act, although there'll be many people out there who wish that they hadn't. However, it was THQ's WWF SmackDown, which released for PlayStation in April 2000, that was a true landmark release, going on to sell millions of copies. There's been a new officially licensed game every year since, and the series lives on today thanks to WWE 2K23, which released just last month. Let's go back to WWF WrestleMania though, and see what I said about it in my original review. My review was published in issue 32 of GamesX from December 1991. It was a very busy week for me, as I reviewed a number of Amiga games in that issue, including Epic, Realms and Cisco Heat. But not only that, I contributed a 2-page player's guide and map for Ocean's Head Over Heels. I think I must have been the only person in the office on the day that this came in for review, as I can't for the life of me work out why I was chosen to review it, rather than somebody who, actually liked wrestling. Not liking something doesn't mean that I'm incapable of liking the game though. I don't really care for boxing either, but that doesn't mean that I don't like Creed Champions, Knockout Kings or the almighty Punch-Out. I was pleasantly surprised with WrestleMania, saying that the graphics and music were both excellent and it was very playable. I scored it 15 out of 20 for both its presentation and gameplay, and 14 out of 20 for its last ability. The overall score was 4 X's out of 5, which was enough to earn it an X-rated stamp. I am glad to say that you won't be disappointed with the finished product. WWF is more realistic than the real thing, and that's official. Now let's load the game up and see if I still feel the same way. It's time for the playtest. Okay, so let's get going with the options that are available. We have compete for the belt or practice. Compete for the belt is your standard single player mode. You'll get to choose between one of 3 wrestlers. You can choose between Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, or the British Bulldog. I'm going to go with Hulk Hogan. So before each bout, you get to do the trash talking. So you might be strong, you might look good, but you just ain't perfect. So am I fighting against Mr. Perfect? He's going to be my first opponent then. So these are my options for reply. You might be perfect, but what you're going to do when the largest arms in the world and the power of Hulkamania run wild on you? The only thing perfect about you is the defeat for which you will suffer. Born in 1984, Hulkamania was born. Now it's stronger than ever, and I feel that one seems like... Yeah, the only thing perfect about you is the defeat. Let's go for that one. It's a bit silly that you have to wait while this message scrolls across the screen. So as you can see, the graphics are pretty decent. They're fairly reminiscent of the WrestleFest arcade machine. There's not a huge amount of moves available. Every time you get into a grapple, you have to waggle the joystick to get out. So your moves are tapping the fire button punches, pressing the fire button while moving gives you a kick. Double tapping the fire button while moving should give you the drop kick. Now with me playing this on the A500 Mini, I have actually programmed it in so that the joystick waggling I have put onto buttons. Because otherwise this would be virtually impossible on a joypad. So you can also climb out of the ring, you can climb up on the ropes. So climbing out of the ring, and there's a chair that you can use. Hey, victory! I don't know why they've even bothered having this text scroll across the screen. Just printing it on screen would have been better, because then you could have read it at your own pace. So who's this? Destiny had declared that you have a date with the Warlord. It's a good job you can press the fire button to just skip that text, because that's getting very boring. Feels like it's another one of those fighting games where there may be a few different moves that you can use, but there's essentially one that you just end up using over and over again because it's the best one. Yeah, $1 Million Man. Just having a quick look in the game manual. $1 Million Man. Never heard of him. So as you can see, once again, I'm just doing the grapple, getting a couple of hits in while he's on the ground, and then grappling again. So another easy victory. So the next up is the Mountie, the future of law enforcement. Pretty sure that was RoboCop. I talked about him last week. Is he just a big old Canadian stereotype? Is he? It's also disappointing that they've not changed the colour scheme slightly. I mean, I know you can. There's only one ring, but they could have at least changed the colour scheme to make it look like the lighting was different. So that's your 8 wrestlers in the game. You've got your Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, British Bulldog, and then your 5 opponents, who are Mr. Perfect, the Warlord, $1 Million Man, the Mountie, and Sergeant Slaughter. The only real difference to them is the grapple move that they all have. That's essentially it for the single player mode. You got five fights in quick succession. How long have I been playing this for? I've been playing this for 15 minutes. It's taken me to get to and I'm on the last fight already. What Ocean actually did was they bundled a video, good old VHS tape in the box with the game. I suppose that tried to add some value to it. Right, can I pin him this time? Yes, I can, and there we go, victory. Game complete in just over 15 minutes. That was with one of the characters. So I could do that again with 2 other characters, and that's essentially it. Your only other option that you get is practice. And practice mode is where the 2-player mode resides. So player 1 gets to choose which one of the 3 wrestlers they want to be. I'll go for British Bulldog this time. And as you've just seen, player 2 doesn't get to choose who they want to be. Player 2 is Mr. Perfect, and that's it. So I suppose how much replayability you're going to get out of the multiplayer mode depends on how much of a fan of Mr. Perfect the friend that you're playing the game with is. So that's it. 15-minute compete for the belt championship mode, and a woeful 2-player mode. So it's not good. But let's get on to the final verdict. In terms of presentation, WWF WrestleMania is still well above average for this type of game on the Amiga. The wrestlers themselves are all extremely colourful and well animated, and that's about all I can say about the game that's positive. Trash talk before bouts is supposed to be snappy and fun, but its execution in this game beggars belief. First, your opponent will say something, and you'll have to sit there and read it as it scrolls achingly slowly across the bottom of the screen. Then you'll get to choose one of 3 responses, and sit as that scrolls slowly across the screen as well. It's a painful experience all round, that you can thankfully just press the fire button to skip. I'm actually astounded by how little there is in this game for a full price release. There are only 2 modes available for the player: compete for the belt, where you must win 5 fights in a row, or practice, and practice is the only way that you can play 2 players against your friend. There are only 8 wrestlers in the game, and only 3 of those are playable. You can't even unlock any more. Worse still, player 2 doesn't even get to choose who they want to be when you enter practice mode. To be honest, it's frankly laughable. Next time you complain about the lack of content in a new release, just try and remember this game. The gameplay itself is repetitive and overly simple. There's not much difference between any of the wrestlers apart from their finishing move, and it's not especially difficult either. You'll have seen everything that the game has to offer in less than an hour without much effort. Hate is a very strong word that I don't use lightly, and to be perfectly honest, I hate this game and really wish I never have to play it ever again. Having said that, it's still better than the WWF European Rampage tour that came out a year later. It's slim pickings for wrestling games on the Amiga, but here's the Super League anyway for what it's worth. It was not really a strong point for the system. Somehow this game still manages to be top of the pile, despite not being very good. None of the games here are really worth playing. My original 4-star review was well off the mark, and I couldn't give it anything more than 4 out of 10 today. Thank you for watching this episode of the Re-Review. I hope you enjoyed it a lot more than I enjoyed playing the game. I don't really think the wrestling costume works, as I don't really have the physique for it, but there you go. If you enjoyed this video, then you can watch all previous episodes in a playlist right here on our channel, and don't forget to like and subscribe to show your support for what we do. I'm going to be back in 2 weeks' time playing another game, and if you want to know what game that's going to be, then stick around until the end when there'll be a little musical hint. All opinions expressed in this video are entirely my own, and you can find me over on Twitter at UKJenZoidberg if you want to ask me any questions or tell me where I'm wrong. Until next time, thanks for watching, happy retro gaming, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.